In 1932, a man who had spent his entire life building one of Britain's greatest truck companies was pushed out of the boardroom. He was 62 years old. Most men would have gone home. Instead, he came out of retirement, walked to a workshop a mile from the factory that bore his name, and built a rival from scratch. That man was Edwin Richard Foden. And the company he created, ERF, would become one of the most beloved British truck brands of the 20th century. Steam was more than a technology at Foden. For decades, it was the lifeblood of a family business and the pride of a small Cheshire town. The company traced its roots to the 19th century when Edwin Foden Sr. began fitting steam engines to wagons in Sandbach. By the early 1900s, Foden's steam lorries rumbled across Britain's roads, hauling everything from coal to cotton, and the family name became a byword for reliability and strength. Generations of Fodens worked side by side, fathers and sons shaping iron and steel, building engines that powered the country's industry. Inside the factory gates, steam was almost a creed. The company's catalogues boasted of robust boilers, gleaming brass, and the signature Foden badge pressed into every machine. Skilled men in flat caps and oil-stained aprons tended furnaces and lathes, passing down their craft through apprenticeships that lasted years. Each new lorry was a point of local pride, celebrated in Sandbach as if it were a ship's launch. For the Foden board, the steam tradition was not just a technical choice. It was a legacy, a way of life, and the foundation of the company's reputation. By the 1920s, Foden was among the last great champions of steam in Britain. While petrol and diesel engines began to appear in rival vehicles, the Foden name remained synonymous with the hiss and clatter of high-pressure boilers. Their wagons dominated heavy haulage, winning medals at trade shows and setting endurance records on the open road. The company's sales literature spoke with confidence. Steam, they insisted, was reliable, economical, and proven in the harshest conditions. Customers agreed. Local hauliers, railway contractors, and government buyers placed orders year after year, trusting Foden's promise that steam would always deliver. But beneath the surface, the world was changing. Continental manufacturers were experimenting with oil engines. British insurance companies started to raise premiums on steam lorries, citing the risks of boiler explosions and rising maintenance costs. Still, the Foden board held firm. Their faith in steam was absolute, rooted in decades of success and a deep sense of family identity. To them, a move away from boilers and pistons was unthinkable, a threat not only to their business but to everything the Foden name stood for. This was the culture Edwin Richard Foden grew up in and helped shape, a family united by steam, a company proud of its heritage, and a boardroom convinced that tradition would outlast any passing trend. The arrival of diesel would not just challenge a product line, it would test the very core of the Foden identity and set the stage for a break that would divide not just a company but a family. Pressure mounted on the Foden board as the 1930s dawned. Steam, once the backbone of British haulage, was now a liability in the eyes of insurers. Underwriters, wary of the risks, including boiler explosions, unpredictable maintenance, and the sheer weight of iron and water, started charging as much as a quarter more to cover steam lorries than their diesel rivals. For a haulier, that meant paying nearly 30% extra each year just for the privilege of running a Foden. In an era of razor-thin margins, those numbers cut deep. The threat was not just financial. Across the Channel, diesel trucks were proving themselves on the roads of Germany and France. Their engines ran cooler, started faster, and most important of all, burned less fuel. In 1931, Edwin Richard Foden arranged for a 6-ton Foden chassis to be fitted with a lightweight Gardner oil engine. The results were impossible to ignore. The Gardner 14W delivered a steady 46 brake horsepower at 1,800 revolutions per minute, with a torque curve that flattened hills and shrugged off heavy loads. On a 120-mile test run, The prototype covered the distance using just 10 gallons of fuel, around 12 miles per gallon, a figure that left the old steamers in the dust. Steam wagons, by comparison, demanded nearly a gallon of coal and water for every mile, and still struggled with reliability. Trade journals began to take notice. Reports in Commercial Motor and The Engineer pointed to a new economic reality. Diesel trucks could cut operating costs by up to 30%. For customers, that translated into real money saved, trip after trip. Yet inside the Foden boardroom, tradition held firm. The directors saw steam not just as an engine, but as the soul of the company. To them, diesel was unproven, a foreign gamble that risked everything their fathers and grandfathers had built. Outside, the market was less sentimental. Hauliers demanded lower premiums and better fuel economy. Insurance companies quietly warned that steam underwriting would only grow more expensive. Competitors, quick to sense an opening, began offering diesel-powered trucks with the promise of modernity and thrift. The old arguments about the reliability of boilers and the pride of sandbagged craftsmanship were met with cold calculations and the hard edge of a balance sheet. Within this storm, Edwin Richard Foden saw only one way forward. The numbers were clear. The Gardner test had proven what he already believed. Diesel was the future of heavy haulage. But his conviction ran headlong into the board's refusal to let go of the past. The debate was no longer technical, it was existential. The company's very identity, its legacy, and its survival were now at stake. What began as a question of engineering had become a battle for the soul of Foden, and the pressure was about to reach breaking point. The evidence for diesel was now impossible to ignore. Edwin Richard Foden, at 62, had spent his life building a legacy from steam, but the numbers told a different story. The Gardner engine test on the Foden chassis delivered results that no one in the boardroom could refute. 12 miles per gallon, reliable power, and a running cost that undercut steam by nearly a third. Trade journals ran the figures in black and white. Hauliers began to ask pointed questions. Why cling to the old ways when the future was already rolling down the road? Inside the boardroom, the mood turned cold. Edwin's advocacy for diesel was no longer a private debate, it was a direct challenge to the company's soul. The directors, many of them family, saw his push as a threat to tradition and, by extension, their own standing. The board, steeped in the rituals of steam, refused to budge. They saw diesel as a gamble, a risk to everything the Foden name had built. But Edwin saw something else: survival. For him, the Gardner trial was proof, not theory. The world outside was changing faster than Sandbach's ironworks could adapt. The confrontation came to a head in late 1932. The minutes of that meeting have never surfaced, but the outcome is beyond doubt. Edwin, the man whose name was stamped on every boilerplate, was forced to choose, abandon his convictions or walk away from the company he had shaped since boyhood. He chose to walk. At 62, after more than 40 years at the helm, Edwin Richard Foden handed in his resignation. According to reports in Commercial Motor, he cited the board's refusal to embrace proven diesel technology as his reason for leaving. The notice was brief, but the message was unmistakable: a lifetime's work undone by a refusal to face the future. The shockwaves ran through Sandbach. In the space of a single meeting, the family was split not just by business, but by belief. Edwin's resignation was more than a career move, it was a public break with everything the Foden name had represented. Friends and rivals alike wondered what would come next. For some, it was the end of an era. For Edwin, it was a beginning. The man dismissed as too old, too stubborn, too wedded to his ideas, was already planning his answer. He would not go quietly. Within months, the world would see a new badge on the roads of Cheshire, a brand built on defiance, and a name that carried the weight of a family divided by technology. News of Edwin Richard Foden's resignation travelled fast. In Sandbach, the shock was immediate. The trade paper Commercial Motor carried a terse notice. E.R. Foden, a fixture in the industry for over 40 years, had left the company that bore his name. For many, it felt unthinkable, but for Edwin, the break was not an end, it was a call to action. He was not alone in this. His son, Dennis Foden, had grown up in the shadow of the family works, learning every inch of the business from the ground up. Dennis's decision was swift and public. He left the Foden boardroom soon after his father, refusing to accept the company's refusal to modernise. The two men, father and son, became the nucleus of something new. Their departure sent ripples through the close-knit world of British truck building, and the industry watched closely. The first to rally behind Edwin were men who knew both the business and the Foden family well. George Faulkner, a respected works manager, saw in Edwin's vision for diesel not just a technical shift, but a chance to build a company free from the weight of old loyalties. Ernest Sherratt, an engineer known for his sharp mind and steady hand, joined the cause as well. Together they brought decades of experience and, just as important, a willingness to challenge the old orthodoxy. Then there was John Henry Jennings, the coach builder whose Sandbach workshop had supplied cabs to Foden for years. Jennings offered more than just skills. He provided the physical space where the first plans for a new company could take shape. His workshop became the meeting ground for late-night discussions, sketches on scrap paper, and the first outlines of a diesel-powered future. The early meetings were marked by both urgency and hope. Trade journals speculated about Edwin's next move, with Commercial Motor hinting that a new independent concern was in the works. Private letters and conversations, now mostly lost to time, suggest a mix of determination and quiet outrage. For Edwin and his allies, every day brought new evidence that the market was shifting. Customers wanted diesel, insurers wanted diesel, the old guard at Foden would not move, but that only fueled their resolve. The group worked quickly. They mapped out what a modern truck company could look like, one that would source the best components from proven suppliers, assemble them with care, and put reliability above tradition. The team's confidence grew with each planning session. In the space of a few months, exile became purpose. The sense of betrayal hardened into a shared mission to prove that age, tradition, and even family history could be overcome by clear vision and the courage to act. By early 1933, the outlines of the new company were set, the founding team was in place, the workshop secured, and the first orders for engines and gearboxes ready to go. Edwin, now 63, was not stepping back. He was gathering his forces, determined to show that Defiance could build more than just a rival, it could build a future. The legal paperwork for ERF was filed in early 1933, just months after Edwin Richard Foden's dramatic exit from his family's boardroom. The new company's name, simply his initials, left no doubt about its origins. The blueprint for ERF was as unconventional as its founder's comeback. Instead of building everything in-house, Edwin and Dennis assembled a network of trusted suppliers. Engines would come from Gardner, a Manchester firm known for reliable diesel power. Gearboxes were sourced from David Brown of Huddersfield, while axles arrived from Kirkstall Forge in Leeds. This supplier triad was a deliberate break from the all-under-one-roof tradition of Foden. Each part was chosen for proven strength and efficiency, reflecting the lessons learned from years inside the old family firm. The heart of this new operation beat not in a grand factory, but in the workshop of John Henry Jennings, a Sandbach coach builder whose cabs had once graced Foden lorries. Jennings offered more than just bodywork. His workshop became ERF's first assembly floor, a place where ideas were hammered into reality. Here, Edwin's vision of a modern component-built diesel truck took shape. The team worked with urgency and precision, blending the old craftsman's pride with the new engineer's pragmatism. Every order, every drawing, every delivery carried the weight of defiance, a pointed answer to the boardroom that had dismissed both Edwin's age and his ideas. By spring, the first ERF chassis stood ready, a machine built from the best parts of Britain's industrial north, and the hard resolve of a family determined to prove the future could be forged on their own terms. In the spring of 1933, a single truck chassis stood at the centre of John Henry Jennings' workshop in Sandbach. Its frame carried a number that was anything but random, 63, the age Edwin Richard Foden had reached when he refused to accept the end of his working life. This was not just a production tally. It was a statement hammered into steel that experience and conviction could outlast the weight of family tradition. Every rivet and weld echoed a decision made in defiance of the old boardroom, a silent answer to those who had called. Edwin finished. The new ERF chassis was assembled from the best that Britain's industrial north could offer. A Gardner diesel engine, a David Brown gearbox, Kirkstall axles and a cab shaped by Jennings himself. Unlike the grand assembly lines of the old firm, this truck came together in a modest workshop, each component chosen for reliability, not sentiment. The men who built it knew the story, how Edwin and Dennis had walked away from a name that once meant everything, only to stamp their own initials on a machine that would carry them forward. When the Olympia Commercial Motor Show opened its doors that autumn, ERF's chassis 63 took its place among the giants. Its number was no secret. Trade journals pointed out the symbolism. A founder's age as a badge of challenge. A public rebuke to the idea that progress belonged only to the young or to those unwilling to change. For Edwin Richard Foden, this was more than a launch. It was vindication. Proof that defiance could be built, bolted and rolled out for the world to see. A family divided by technology, a legacy redefined by defiance. Edwin Foden's conviction at 63 reshaped not just British trucking, but the very idea of what it means to start over. Today, industries still cling to tradition in the face of change, but progress often begins when someone refuses to accept the limits of age or the weight of old loyalties. Which side will history reward next? Share your thoughts below.